Hey, happy Monday. Here's a cute picture of Cody Ty and Casey Joe, just to cheer you up on this Monday morning. I thought it was pretty cute that he was smiling, so I thought I'd share that with y'all. He's growing and getting pretty big. I've got 2 weeks left with him at home before I'm back in class with you. I hope you guys have had a great weekend and are ready to get started on the notes. Today's lesson is 1.5. Multistep equations. So we've been moving up. We started with 1 step, 2 step, now we're going to multi-step. Sounds like some kind of dance move. Alright, so these problems are a little bit harder, but you can handle it. Let's go ahead and flip to the note page. We're going to solve the following multi-step equations and give a description of each step and then check our solution. So we're going to give a description, that way whenever you go back in your notes you know exactly what you did, and also on the iExcel it's set up that way too. So you're going to be filling in what happened along each step of the equation. Remember, the whole goal of solving equations is to figure out what the variable equals. So I'm trying to figure out what number could I plug into C in order to get this left side of the equation to equal the right side. It's like solving a puzzle. We want to figure out what does C equal, what's the missing piece to make this equation true. So let's go ahead and solve this problem A. I've got 8 times C plus 1 equals 18. And we could distribute out this 8 and that would be perfectly fine. But you can actually save yourself some time and just divide by 8, because I'm multiplying 8 times this whole parenthesis. I can divide each side by 8, because I would get 8 divided by 8, which is just 1. So I would get C plus 1 equals 18 divided by 8, which is 2.25. So our first step was we divide by 8. Now I need to get C by itself because I'm trying to figure out what it equals. So I need to get rid of this positive 1. So I'm going to subtract 1 from each side. 1 minus 1 is 0, so I'd be left with C equals 2.25 minus 1, which would be 1.25. 1 1/4. So I would say we subtracted 1. Okay, now let's plug in our answer and make sure that it makes sense. So I'm going to plug in 1.25 in place of the C and make sure that we did our problem correctly. Alright. 1.25 plus 1 would be 2.25. And then I would have 8 times 2.25, which just so happens to be 18. So we would get 18 equals 18. Sorry, I wrote way too big, so I got out of the box a little bit. Okay, I'm going to come up here and erase part of this problem, so make sure you have it written down while I go on to problem B. That way it doesn't get into this other problem. Okay, so now I have x plus 17 divided by 5 equals 9. So now we want to figure out what does x equal. So since I'm dividing everything in the numerator, which is where my variable is, by 5, I need to get rid of that 5. So the opposite of dividing by 5 would be to multiply by 5. So I'm going to multiply each side by 5. Five divided by 5 is 1, because remember this is really like 5 over 1. So I'd be left with x plus 17 equals 9 times 5, which is 45. And then I'm going to get x by itself, so I need to get rid of this positive 17. So I'm going to subtract it and move it to the other side of the equation. 17 minus 17 is 0. So I'd be left with x equals 45 minus 17, which is 28. So on that step, we would subtract 17. Okay, now let's check it. So I'm going to plug 28 in for place of x. (28 plus 17 is 45, and then 45 divided by 9 is 9. So we get 9 equals 9. So we got a true equation, which means we did it correctly. We found the correct solution. Okay, moving on to problem number C, or letter C. (7d plus 6 equals 4d plus 6). So in this equation, we have variables on each side of the equal sign. So what I need to do now is combine my variables and get them on the same side. So let's go ahead and look at the d's. I've got 7d on the left side and 4d's on the right side. So what I need to do is subtract the 4d on the right side and move it over to the left side. (7d minus 4d is 3d, and then I still have this plus 6 equals 4d minus 4d is 0. It's gone, and then I'm just left with positive 6. So you can see we took the 4d on the right side of the equation and moved it to the left side. So now it's gone. All of my d's are combined on the left side. So since I got my variable on the left side, I need to get it by itself now, and so I want to get rid of this positive 6 and move it over to the right side. And let's go ahead and write out that step so we don't forget it. So I subtracted 4d. Now I'm going to subtract the 6 to get all of my numbers on the right side. So I would have 3d, 6 minus 6 is 0, equals 6 minus 6, which is 0, and that's okay. 0 is a number. Don't get scared with that. So in this step, we subtracted 6. And then now I need to solve for d. So I need to divide each side by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so I'd be left with 1d equals 0 divided by 3, which is 0. Remember, that's okay. 0 is an actual answer. So on this step, we divided by 3. Okay, so let's check it. I'm going to plug in d, or 0, for every d that I see in my equation. So I have 7 times 0 plus 6 equals 4 times 0 plus 6. Well, remember that anything times 0 is just 0. So 7 times 0 plus 6 would be 6. And then 4 times 0 plus 6 would also be 6. So we did it correctly. We got a true equation. Okay, I'm about to erase this to make sure you have it written down so I'll have more room to work on problem D. Alright, so on this problem, let's go ahead and distribute out this -5 because my variable is on both sides of the equation, so I can't just divide everything by -5. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute out this -5. -5 times -2h would be positive 10h. And then -5 times 14 is -70. and then that equals 5h minus 20. So we want to get the variables together. I typically always bring them to the left side of the equation. You don't have to. You could bring them to the right side if you want, but it just makes it easier because that's how everything's set up usually. So I'm going to get this positive 5h and move it over here. So in order to do that, I need to subtract it, because I know 5h minus 5h is 0. So for this step, we're going to subtract 5h. Ten h minus 5h would be 5h. And then I still have minus 70 equals 5h minus 5h is 0. So to equal negative 20. Now that I've got my h's on the left side, I want to get my numbers on the right side, because remember, I'm trying to get h by itself. So I'm going to add 70 to each side. Which would leave me with 5h equals negative 20 plus 70 would be 50. And then my last step would be to divide each side by 5. Five divided by 5 is 1. So I would be left with h equals 50 divided by 5, which is 10. Okay, I do not have any more space to write, so we could plug back in 10 into every h that we see in our equation, and then make sure that the left side equals the right side. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to letter E, and we'll be done. We saved the best for last, these lovely fractions. Don't get scared because there's fractions. It's okay. You can do it. So we want to get all of our k's together on one side of the equation, and then all of the constants, just the numbers, on the other side. Typically, I would bring this k over here to keep it on the left side, but if you can see, I would have to subtract it. So I would have to do 1/6 minus 5/6, and we'd get a negative fraction, which I don't really want to mess with. So in this case, I'm actually going to subtract 1/6 from each side. So I'm going to subtract 1/6 k from the left side and 1/6 k from the right side. So 1/6 k minus 1/6 k is 0. So I'd be left with negative 3 equals 5/6 k minus 1/6 k. So 5/6 minus 1/6 would be 4/6. Let me write this down here. Thankfully, we already have a common denominator. And then let's go ahead and simplify 4/6, because that's not simplified. I can divide both of these by 2 over 2. So 4 divided by 2 would be 2, and then 6 divided by 2 is 3. So this would become 2/3 k. And then I still have this positive 10 on the end. Alright, so now I got all of my k's to the right side of the equation, so now I need to get my numbers to the left side. So I'm going to subtract this 10 and bring it over here. Oh, and I forgot to write out my steps. So that first step was to subtract 1/6 k. And now we're subtracting 10. Alright, so negative 3 minus 10 is negative 13. And then it would equal 2/3 k, because 10 minus 10 is 0. Alright, so I'm left with negative 13 equals 2/3 k. So I need to get this 2/3 to the other side. So the easiest way to do that, you could multiply by 3 and then divide by 2. I just like multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to say multiply by 3 over 2. because what happens is 2/3 times 3/2 is 1. Anytime you multiply by the reciprocal, it just equals 1. So then I would have 3/2 times -13. Well, if we're going to multiply fractions, this would turn into 3 times -13, which is -39. And then 2 times 1 is 2. So we would get -39 halves, so -39 over 2 would equal k. And you could leave it as a fraction or turn it into a decimal. So 39 divided by 2, or -39 divided by 2 would be -19.5. Alright, so this is one we could definitely check. You could plug in this answer for k and make sure that the left side equaled the right side, and you know that you did it correctly. And that's it for your notes over multi-step equations. You're going to start your iExcel. Now, if you have any questions, please let me know. Hope you guys have a great week. Bye.